everyone, and welcome to another episode of Little Give. I'm so excited because today we're doing something a little bit different because we're celebrating our 100th episode of Little Give. It's so hard for me to believe that we're here. 100 episodes. That's incredible considering where this all began. So you might not know this story, but back in 2017, I founded a nonprofit called Driving Single Parents. And I was so excited to give away cars to single parents in need and really make a difference. But then I realized I had a fear of public speaking. Ugh. And it really held us back for a while, I believe, because I really shied away from doing interviews and was just terrified of being on TV or on cameras. And I did it, but I just hated it. And so back in September 2 years ago, I decided I was going to swallow my fear and do it afraid. I was going to get over this fear of public speaking. Well, in very short order after that, I was offered an opportunity to write in a book called Shattering the Stigma of Single Motherhood. And of course, at first I said, absolutely not. There's no way I could be an author. I don't even like to read. I love listening to my audiobooks and I love podcasts, but sitting down to read a book, just not for me. But I said, you know what, Cindy, you made that commitment to yourself that you were going to do it afraid. And so I did. And in very short order after that, another book opportunity. And then I got offered to be the host of a TV show. And of course, what was the first thing I said? Are you crazy? I don't know anything about TV. There's no way. I hate being on camera. Absolutely not. Can't do it. Won't do it. Not happening. But then that sneaky little reminder that I had made this commitment to myself that I was going to start saying yes, and I was going to do it afraid. So I sat down and I thought about, what would make it worth it for me to get in front of this camera every single week and do these episodes? And it hit me. It was, man, if I could highlight ordinary people doing extraordinary things to help others, then that would really make it worth it. If I could find a way to highlight nonprofits from around the world and hopefully get some extra donations for those nonprofits, that would make it worth it for me to sit in front of this camera and do it afraid week after week. And so I did. And that's how Little Give was born. And here we are today with Little Give's 100th episode. So just a proof to everyone out there who's watching that if you can push through the fear and do it afraid, amazing things can happen. Because as you know by now, there have been some incredible guests on this TV show who have really not just inspired me, but has inspired audiences from around the world. This show airs in 127 countries and has a large viewership. And it's incredible to see that this good news and the spreading of kindness and sharing of nonprofits has really, really hit home with so many. So I want to thank you all so much for watching Little Give and supporting us through all that we're going through and growing through all the time. And I also want to give a big shout out to my editor, Stephen, who has done an incredible job editing every single episode, and including this one. He put this together for you all. Also want to give a shout out to our producer and Andrew and our network over at Phoenix TV who made this possible for us. So everybody out there who's helping us grow, we are so grateful. We also have Kylie who does an amazing job at all the graphics that you see come out for Little Give. So with all that being said, I would love to show you what we've been through over the last 100 episodes. So take a look at what Stephen has put together. Thank you all so much again. Can you give the audience an example of a little thing that they can do in their community that might be a little give on their end, but might make a big impact on the other side?
You know, I think that if you could just start with something simple, don't think that you have to do something great. It could be just going out and picking up garbage. I was down in Newport Beach a little over a year ago, and I was down there on a bike ride, and it was early in the morning, and I saw this family of three. Well, it was a mom and daughter and son, and they were probably in the age of like 7 and 5, I'm guessing. And they all had garbage bags, in their hands. And I stood there and watched as the mom was taking the kids out just to pick up garbage on the beach. And that made an impact in me. And I was like, you know what? It's just a little small thing in life of just teaching your kids. We can do this one simple thing. We could go out for 30 minutes. We can go out for an hour. And we can do this one simple thing. Don't feel like you've got to just take on this massive project to do something, but you can do one of the smallest things, and that's just go to the park. You can go to the beach, whatever, and do something simple. But the main thing is don't be held back by doing nothing, right? today's always the best day. Let's make it happen. So even if we're picking up garbage in a small gesture to our community and keeping it clean, just get out and do something.
Can you give the audience an example of a time in your life where somebody did something little for you that might have just been, a little give on their end, but really made an impact in you and on your life?
So, I'm going to get a little serious here with everybody. And again, I don't know how to explain things on a small scale. So what had motivated me to try to be the best, not just at my job, but to take a lot of accountability and ownership in my career and how I carry myself through life now, are all those men and women that came before me in the New York City Police Department, the FDNY, all those first responders and members of the military that gave their lives so that myself, my 3 kids, my stepson, my girlfriend, my family, and this community can live in freedom. So I wanted to make sure that as I went through with my career, and then I take that little bit of what they gave me to even here with Project Accounted For, I want to make sure that I could do it to the best of my ability and not let them down. Make sure that they know that what they gave, which was everything, they gave their lives for all of us, and it wasn't in vain. That they gave up their freedoms, their lives, and their loved ones are now living a life without them for a great community, a great America here, a great world. And I don't want it to go down a negative path. So I'm appreciative for all those men and women that gave their lives for us here.
Can you give the audience an example of a time in your life where somebody did something little for you that might have just been, a little give on their end, but really made an impact to you and on your life?
Yes, we had a family tragedy and people came out of the woodworks, bringing food, bringing coffee, bringing wine. And I just, looking back on all of that, their presence and just showing up with a cup of coffee, I was blown away by people's, generosity. So, yeah.
Can you give us an example of a little thing that somebody who's watching today can do in their community that might just be a little give on their end, but might make a big impact on the other side?
Absolutely. So I've actually come up with an acronym for this, okay? What we need to do is create OMG moments every day. So OMG can stand for oh my goodness or oh my gosh. And oh my goodness, these things I'm about to share do make a massive difference, but they're actually really little simple things. So O stands for outside. So create opportunities to get outside more. So this can be for your family and your kids, but it can also be for anyone who you work with. So obviously, if you're a teacher, you work with young people, you can look for opportunities to get them learning outside. If you work with older people, outside, or even if you have like colleagues, get them outside for professional development or well-being sort of opportunities, whether it's organising hikes or whatever. Because when we do get outside in nature, quite literally, all at the same time, we get happier, healthier and smarter. So it's absolutely amazing. And then we've got so that's the O, then the M is movement. So again, create opportunities for people in your life, your family, people you teach, if you're a teacher, work colleagues and so forth, to move more, because movement is the best thing you can do for depression and mental health. It helps us stave off pretty much all of the major diseases. So again, whether it's planning gardening opportunities, going to the park, any time that you can sort of get off the screens and ideally outside and moving in the natural world, because then you've got both nature and movement. It's going to be doing wonders for your mental health and physical health, but also, like I said, happy, healthy and smart. And then the G stands for grateful. So once again, create opportunities for people in your life to have feelings of gratitude, because an attitude of gratitude is oh so powerful. It's one of the best things, again, we can do for our mental health, to become more resilient and cope with bad things when they happen, because we learn to switch our focus to positive things. And so you can, around your dinner table, make it a family thing that you say to each other, what are we grateful for from the day? And you all share. At night, when you're tucking the kids in, what are you grateful for today? You can start your staff meetings like that. What are we grateful for? Let's share our gratitude thoughts. Because when we do start to be more mindful and notice and be more aware of all the little magical moments that we have, all the things we have to be grateful for and thankful for, whether it's our eyesight or our food or that moment that that person said something that made us smile or made us laugh, or that tiny little way that someone helped us, we again literally make ourselves happier and healthier mentally and physically and smarter. So create OMG moments.
Okay, well, will you tell the audience an example of something little they can do in their community that might just be a little give on their end, but might make a big impact on the other side?
This is one that will mess with your head, but it's like such a beautiful, simple thing. Starting today, going forward, just tell people what they did right. That's it. Just tell them what they did right, what you liked about it. Oh, hey, thanks. That was really helpful. Hey, that was really wonderful. Hey, this was really fantastic. I appreciate this. Tell people the things they did right, because so many people only ever get energy when they're doing something wrong, right? The kid runs away and gets yelled at, but the kid listening and paying attention, where's mom and dad jumping up and down, giving them high fives and excited? So you're at a store, you're at a restaurant, someone holds the door, somebody is good at their job. Just say, hey, you're doing a fantastic job. I really appreciate you being here. You made this experience fantastic. 10, 15, 20 words, but you put that positive light into someone else and it lifts them a little bit. And then how are they going to show up in that job or that experience or that moment or the rest of their day? And it's such a fun thing to watch people light up, because so few people get compliments anymore, it seems.
Audience an example of a little thing that they can do in their community that might just be a little give on their end, but might make a big impact on the other side?
Certainly. As someone who's on the lifelong grief journey, it's not a fluid process that we go through. A lot of times, those of us on the grief journey, we take 2 steps forward, then take 2 or 3 steps back. And that's at least in the beginning, that's a lot what happens. I'm at the point where that still happens, but maybe not as much. So what I ask for those that are on the outside looking in is that's those that aren't grieving, looking in at me going, well, what can I do? The first thing I would say is kind of reverse your thinking. And what I mean by that is a lot of us in the first 6 months, year, maybe even 2 years get, well, hey, if you need something, contact me. We got to reverse that thinking. Those people that have lost someone have a lot going on. There was a lot of time in that first 6 months to a year that I may not have had the brain power, the desire, the will to want to reach out to someone. So what I would tell people is, we understand where you're coming from. We understand you're trying to be nice and polite, and we do see that. But reverse that. Instead of putting the demand, so to speak, on us, we would ask that you just reach out to us. It doesn't have to be anything grand. It can be a call, a text, a FaceTime. I would be even willing to accept an email, especially if it was someone long distance. Something as simple as that, just to say, hey, how are things going? We know that most people don't necessarily want to hear the down and dirty, the nitty gritty of what grief is, but just offering that up to us, especially in our most difficult and devastating time, is such a powerful action to us, just to say, hey, I might not understand, but I care. I'm reaching out. If you don't want to talk, great, but just know I'm thinking of you. That's honestly what a lot of us are just looking for.
Can you give the audience an example of a time in your life where somebody did something little for you that might have just been, a little give on their end, but really made an impact on you and in your life?
Absolutely. So I'm going to go back to the story that I talked about earlier, whenever I was at really the lowest point of my life, whenever I received that knock at the door, and it was the federal government asking where the whereabouts of my father. And I moved to LA and I met that like spunky nun who really gave me the confidence to grow into what she already saw in me that I didn't see, because I was wounded, hurting, experiencing extreme depression and anxiety. And she gave me the ability to be able to tell my story to help other people. And that in itself helped me so much, because I would have never been open and honest with my own story, because again, it caused me shame, it caused me guilt, it caused me pain. And I was running away from those things. But knowing that I could tell my story and I could make an impact on her organization and be the conduit to bring children to see their mothers, some of who they hadn't seen between 7 and 14 years, that really struck a chord in my heart. That ignited a fire that was dead. It gave me a purpose and a reason to move on and move forward and be passionate for what was to come. And so in that way, and I do have to, I always joke with her to this day, because she said, you know, you can do this. It will be easy. It has not been easy at all. There are several stumbling blocks along the path of life, but what it has been is rewarding. So find yourself a mentor, a friend, a companion, somebody that believes in you wholeheartedly and that raises you up and that cheers for you whenever you even get those little wins in life, because that was, I think, the little give that she gave me that really changed my life and set a path for my life to make a larger impact in the nonprofit world. And so I'm so grateful to Sister Suzanne Jabro every day of my life. Just a wonderful person and a great woman. So that was the little gift that she gave to me.
Can you give the audience an example of a time in your life where somebody did something little for you that might have just been, a little give on their end, but really made a big impact on you and in your life?
Yeah. And it still does, because I'll get teary talking about it. So I told you guys that when I decided to write my book, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. But it was also at a season in my life when I was rebuilding my life. I had moved back to New Jersey, literally used my tax return to move. I was trying to restart my business. I often was going to work and paying like the little bit of money that I made to my babysitter. And so it was a really tough season financially. And so I was like, okay, I want to write this book, but I have no money. And I just thought like, okay, well, I'll just throw a book up, and I'll self-publish it and I'll stick it up on, Kindle Direct or whatever. And then as I started talking to friends and like having, them being like, okay, that's not really how you write a book, and you need an editor and you need to have it formatted right and it needs to look good. And, I wanted to put pictures in it. I thought, oh my God, this is going to be so much money. This is way more than like what I bargained for. And I had a couple of friends who said, well, you should do a GoFundMe. And I said, I'm not going to do that. I literally have been living on fundraisers for the couple of years that like my daughter was going through treatment. I mean, people were literally doing fundraisers for us while she was in treatment. So I thought there is no way that now, after all that people have given us and everything that we've received from other people, I'm going to be like, can you give me money so I can write a book? I was like, no, not doing that. And I had somebody say, well, just think about it. People do that. I said, yeah, I'll think about it. I'm still not going to do it. And so I really started to pray about it. And I was like, all right, like if you want this book written, this is not my thing that I want done. If you want this book written, like you better open up some doors to show me how I'm supposed to get this money. If you think I should do this GoFundMe, I need like clear confirmation, because this does not feel right to me. This does not feel good to me. And it was about 2 weeks of kind of like praying on it. And I don't remember exactly, but 2 things happened in the same day. Like 2 people said something or came to me or something, but it was like clear confirmation to do this GoFundMe. And it happened right away. And it was like, when you just know God is speaking to you, just know. Right. And I was like, all right, I guess we're going to do this GoFundMe. And so I threw up this GoFundMe, kind of like embarrassed. And that one of the very first people who donated was my daughter's surgeon. And I'm going to preface this that she has been on the cover of 5280 as one of the #1 surgeons in the entire state. She has dealt with thousands and thousands of kids. She literally saved my daughter's life, legit saved my daughter's life. And she had followed our story and we had stayed in touch. And we were, on Facebook. And when she saw that I was doing this, she donated. And she said in her donation, she said, I have, worked with tons and tons of families. Uh, but what they did was so different. And this book needs to be written. Like they need to share their story. And then her nurses donated. And I will get
Wow.
emotional. So when you talk about that, like a little thing, and this wasn't like a huge amount of money. This was people giving, I think she gave like $200, right? But people who gave $25, gave $50, who were like, we followed their story. We want this story to be heard. We want her to share this with other people. And in a month, I had enough money to fund the book. And I just remember thinking, like, this isn't about me. This isn't about my daughter. This is about the people who have been so invested in our story and in watching and being with us over the last, couple years, and seeing my daughter from where she was to where she is now. And they so believe in this. And it gave me the confidence, like, well, if they believe this is worth sharing, right? And that is how I ended up with a book. So it was not, anything it really was it was a God thing. It was not a me thing. And it was from the community. And that's also why I'm a huge, huge, huge advocate on building community. And I always say the community is the new currency. That old saying of like, people used to say, your network is your net worth, kind of thing. But so I always say community is your new currency, and you build your community before you need it. I was building that community, not thinking, a couple of years later, I'm going to write a book, right? I was just building a community and building important people around me and building connections and things like that. And so you build your community. You have no idea when you're going to need that.
Can you give the audience an example of a little thing that they can do in their community? Might just be a little give on their end, but might make a big impact on the other side.
Yeah, I think one of the things to do as far as obviously if you're a teacher, make that shift of, okay, if this isn't a behavior problem, what is something instructionally I could do, or environmentally or relationally that I could do, instead of just jumping to labeling a kid as a behavior problem. Again, and sometimes this takes creativity and it takes so much patience, and which I know teachers already have hearts of gold that are, but if your parents or aunt, uncle, grandparents, I would say the biggest piece that brings kindness, because if you think about it, kids, their whole world is school. Like that's their job. That's where their identity is. If they're at the top of the class or the bottom of the class, or if they do have a label. So bringing in these words of, I see you growing, I see you learning, I see progress. And if you see them stuck, say, hey, what tools can we find together? Right? Like, hey, I saw this lady on Little Give. Let's look her up, see what tool she has, or something else, right? So be a partner with a child that's struggling and say, hey, let's hand in hand find a tool. And one of I'll use humor sometimes to, I'll say, like show a nail and then a screwdriver. And I'm like, is this going to work? Like, that's not the right tool for that job. So there's nothing wrong with the nail and there's nothing wrong with the screwdriver. They're just, that's not the right tool for that. So sometimes we're stuck because we're trying to use the wrong tool in the right way, or the right tool in the wrong way, right? So being the adult in that situation and saying like, hey, there's some kind of disconnect. So so one way is I like, even just bringing math into real life is really helpful to make kids to help things make sense. So if you feel like you're at the bottom of the class and that you're stupid and that you're not good in math, you can't do anything right, you could even just label a water bottle like empty. Oh, how does this work? Empty, half full, right? Okay, so empty is 0. 100% is full. Like, what would half be? Right? And then what's less than or more than? So even as young as 3, 4, 5 years old, can understand this. And then even in middle school, when we start talking about converting fractions, decimals, percents, just kind of bringing real life into math. So instead of like, oh, go get your, fill up your cup for water, you could say, like, start bringing in some mathematical language and really just like, so one of the things that I say is, I have confidence that we can figure this out together. And so you bringing calm to their chaos is so important. And some kids can mask and hide that chaos better than others, but you bringing that calm to their chaos is a very kind thing to do, not just for your own kids, but for the kids around you. And so bringing not just calm, but confidence, right? Like, I'm confident that I see that you're stuck now, but that's okay. Like, I was stuck, and, share a different story. So really just talking about that resilience, talking about that, being stuck is always temporary, but being stupid has this like permanent thing, right? So changing even just that terminology of like, well, you're just stupid in math or you're not good in math, to you're just stuck, like something's stuck and I know you'll get unstuck, I think is a much kinder way to approach a kid who's struggling.
Can you give the audience an example of a little thing that they can do in their community? Might just be a little give on their end, but might make a big impact on the other side.
That's a great question. And I just challenge people to, when you're in public, when you're walking down the street, to smile, say hello to people, hold the door for people, ask people how their day is going, and just leave people with a feeling of impression. Because when you do that, it just it creates such an energy around you, and people will start to notice that, and when they'll look forward to seeing you again. And so whether it's a cashier at a grocery store, ask them and be sincere. How are you doing today? Is there anything I can do to help you today or serve you today? And not necessarily, you can compliment, but not cheesy compliments. Just ask that, compliment them on their smile, or geez, you have a really nice sense of you today, or I feel your energy today, or whatever it may be. Just those small little things go a long way, and they're infectious.
I totally agree. Yeah, that genuine connection with another person, to look them in the eye and say, how are you today? Or thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Or just anything. And it really does give that. I mean, people will actually kind of like be taken aback sometimes, like, because not everybody does it, but we all should be doing it, because it's a little thing that we can all do that is free. Thank you for sharing that example. Can you give the audience an example of a time in your life where somebody did something little for you? It might have just been a little give on their end, but really made an impact on you and in your life.
Well, the biggest impact that I had on my life was, I was down and out after had some things happen to me. And one of my friends reached out to me and said, hey, come join me at a workshop. And I joined them at a workshop, and that's when I jumped into personal development. And just that lady reaching out and say, come on, Pat, you got this. Just come join me on this workout. No strings attached, or on this workshop, sorry, no strings attached. And it just completely changed and altered my life.
If you enjoyed this episode of Little Give, head on over to our website at littlegive.com. You'll be able to find all the information about previous episodes and past guests that we've had on. If you or someone would like to be a guest on Little Give, all the information is also on the website. And if you have a nonprofit that you love and would like to recommend be on the show, all of that information is also on the website. We really appreciate you watching today, and we can't wait to see you again next week.